Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming. My name is Hollow and we're going to talk one final time now about Gamescom and Monster Hunter Wilds. This is going to be my kind of final overview and thoughts, a more general discussion and talk about what I experienced, what I thought about it. Because if you don't know, I went to Gamescom, I played the game, we were invited to do a little private recording session, and now I've made 3 videos all about all the stuff that I learned, from a general overview to weapon specific stuff, and then over 100 details and things that I've learned about Wilds since playing it, since talking with others and seeing community finds. So this video, by comparison to those 3, is going to be a lot more relaxed, as it is just kind of a general like, what's the feeling about Wilds now that I've really learned a lot about it, and just let myself be excited and talk about it for a bit. So as I said, I was physically there. I got to go behind into this private area to go do a recording and met other creators there. It was really cool, but I also did go down to the show floor and see what was going on. When you guys are watching the dev stream, you can see this kind of couched area and then just to the side a kind of glass booth. They would do the recordings at the couch area in front of a crowd and then go to the private glass booth for more dev specific stuff where they had a translator, they needed it to be quieter, coming probably better for the dev stream in general. So there's 2 sides to this area, right? There was the kind of front area in front of the couches and then the line to play. The whole area itself was kind of a big rectangular shape, but they needed like double the space to accommodate for the interest that it had. The line to play the game when I went to check it out was over 4 hours long, and having talked with people at the event, it went up to over 6 hours regularly. People were waiting over 6 hours to play roughly 20 minutes of Wilds. In front of this area by the line was a bunch of cosplayers. There was a bunch of cool statues and stuff. There was a crowd formed just standing there to watch the live show, essentially just watching the live stream that you guys might have been watching online in person. So the only way I can describe it is just a massive crowd all there for Wilds, whether they're watching the show, interacting with the cosplayers and the stuff set up for that, or lining up for the game. The popularity of the Wilds booth in person is also reflected online. As you look at the weapon trailers, they're all pushing over 500,000, some of them towards 1 million views across these weapons. And you compare that not to too long ago, the 4th gen release of those Hunter trailers having roughly 15 to 20k at their releases. It's such a massive step forward in interest for the series, both online and in person. It's well known that Worlds was an insane success for Capcom in general, and so after that, this is essentially Worlds 2. Wilds is the sequel or follow-up to that. The mainline series back again with a bigger budget and now more experience post-Worlds. For me, it just feels like they've nailed it. One of the most impactful things that I felt when playing was the world, sure, because of the weather, the locale, the 3D map stuff, but also the creatures within it. Subtle but important changes with small monsters interacting with the larger monsters instead of just targeting me every time. The monsters themselves, all of them that we got to interact with were new ones, which is such a cool thing. Going into it, I would have easily imagined they would do, oh, here's 1, maybe 2 new monsters, and then some familiar faces. No, they just gave us new everything. Little stuff like, say, the dosha. When I went to attack it and it just like laid down to go to sleep, there was jiggle physics as I was hitting its butt, which is hilarious, but what detail there. Other cool details with dosha, like how it can reopen its wounds when it kind of gets angry and enrages. Chatacabra burying its arms to pull out something different based on where it's burying its arms. Balahara writhing and constricting around targets, whether that's in turf wars around another monster or around pillars that they can crawl and climb around. Josh was telling me that they discussed the fact that they got Leviathans of this kind working in the game finally after a massive amount of effort where they just couldn't get them to work in World. So it's another mechanical big forward step from monster design in general. The fact that if you deal fire damage with a weapon or maybe an explosive and the fire spreads out, burning grass and terrain in that way. Then obviously the weather system with the sandstorm, which will roll through the locale, meaning it's a kind of a big area where the storm is, and it's moving across it. It's not just the whole zone is permanently in that storm while it's available, while it's going. It takes up a physical space that you can choose to avoid if you want. All of this represented really well in the improved map with its 3D system, where sure we're able to look at it as normal bird's eye view, but you can move it and turn it to showcase the 3D nature. And then as you look at the details, you see as the sand dunes go up and the vertical nature of that, where tunnels are going under or walkways are above, it's so much easier to understand what the verticality of this map is, and it is very vertical, much like some of the stuff we saw with Rise and the way that we would climb walls and the vertical nature of that, but just done in a less gamey way and a more like real feeling way. It's hard to like explain. While I do definitely miss the Palamute because it was just a really cool companion, that was also very silly. I mean, the drifting, do you remember? That's absolutely insane. But the Sekret, by comparison, easily fits into this world. Literally, we've now seen a baby version wandering around online. But the mechanics they gave the Sekret were quite surprising. The way that you just kind of auto run forward, and it's up to you just to control the actual speed that you go and the direction. But this thing just runs. So it takes a bit to get used to that for a second. But if you've used horse mounting in the latest Zelda games, it's quite similar to that. But all the quality of life stuff tied to this mount, and in general, the fact that you can swap your weapons while mounted and moving, they let you open the map and go into your inventory while it just follows the auto route you set. Lovely other quality of life details, like the fact the end of a hunt, that 60-second timer, you can now just skip it. The fact that the overlay system that happens there does not pause the game, it just shows you what you got and you can keep going. In fact, you can stay in the locale at the end of a quest, it never forces you out, you choose when you leave. Alongside the new overhauls to the questing systems, where if you find a monster and attack it, you can just suddenly start a quest for it. You can just open your map and choose what you're going to hunt, choose a quest that way, or go old school and go back to the town or the encampment and interact with a board there. It feels like they've approached everything from a perspective of making the game as smooth as possible for the player, giving you as many options to do the thing you want to do as they can think of. I was worried about that transition from Sunbreak to Wilds and a loss of the depth to the gameplay. What I mean specifically is how crazy things got at the end of Rise, where we were swapping between two stances, as it were, with different switch skills and silkbind attacks set up on those. Like you could change the core of the weapon by swapping between the scrolls so impactfully. I think for a lot of people, it may have been a bit too much. This feels much more grounded by comparison. They've folded in a lot of the cooler stuff from Rise though into the base of the weapon, and it's those little meta changing details that I'm really excited by. Something that I've talked about with Dual Blade since it's my main weapon is the awesome Levi spine spin attack. Doing that in World, especially against bigger monsters, was awesome. Same thing in Rise, still great, but it never was like optimal DPS. CCing yourself to do these little ticks down the length of the enemy when you could have been doing max DPS at its weak point or the head or something. So their solution to that, making it your focus mode special attack, means they get to bring back the aerial launch from the aerial style Rise Dual Blades that we saw. It means they get to work the spine spin into an attack, and because it's automatically done, it just kind of happens. It works into normal gameplay. You're going to want to break those wounds, you're going to want to use focus mode attacks on them, so you get to do the Levi spin in the meta gameplay of the weapon finally. So across the board for the weapons, taking stuff that isn't optimized or best and working it into the gameplay so it's worth using is just a wonderful little change. Some weapons obviously have some crazy changes, like the bow getting stamina back on its evade when you perfect evade, or how nuts the tracer arrow as a concept seems. There's always going to be that imbalance in, the function and mechanics of a weapon and what kind of won in the current version of the game we're in. That's okay to me. But in terms of general vibe, I feel like the weapons have become more grounded, become more quote unquote realistic, and the flow of them feels really smooth and good again. On the other hand, something that felt really smooth and yet clunky at the same time is the focus mode aiming. The way with weapons like the greatsword you can turn during a charge, even a full 180, is absolutely phenomenal, allowing me to make sure I land with a charged hit, a slower hit, on the correct weak point. That is a huge bit of quality of life and is great for beginner greatsword users like myself when I just jumped in and used this mechanic to be more accurate with my hits rather than just kind of throw them. Why this is clunky and awkward is actually not because of, say, the greatsword or slow weapons like that. I mean, with faster weapons like dual blades or imagine S&S, it just didn't feel as smooth to use by comparison. I'm used to kind of aiming my body and then swinging with slight adjustments. Having this extra feature to refine that aim to really specific points is undeniably a helpful thing, but it was awkward or difficult for my brain to just kind of actually do it, having played the series for years and, being used to a different playstyle. I'm sure it'll be fine with a little bit of practice and time, but it was something on my mind. And not just mine, I heard it from other creators too. Like for example, with the longsword combos, you'd be able to kind of free aim and do it like normal in the other games, but in this one, turning almost required the focus mode to actually consistently land the attacks. Having said that, this was like a super early version of the game, right? I'm sure things will be continuously revised and improved on. This does not represent the final game. There's a lot of new features to consider and engage with, like that new SOS flare, where you can actually bring in AI hunters to help you on your hunt, and they actually have pretty impressive solid AI. But seeing on the dev stream how they're playing in multiplayer and how smooth that is, even in this massive environment, even while they're doing different stuff, great moments like Ryuzu fishing while they're fighting the monster, but also little reveals like the fun accolades is coming back to say, ooh, who did the most stuns in the hunt? The fact you can all vote to skip that 60 seconds at the end of a quest. There's slightly more free control of where you're going to set up your camps in different locations. The pop-up camps in particular, obviously you can't place them anywhere, but you can place them around large enough areas to really choose where you're going to put them. But that added depth and detail to the fact that they can be destroyed by monsters, so if you put them in a bad place, that's on you, and you'll deal with the consequences. We still have big questions though, in terms of will there be a demo? To my understanding, there's been no confirmation of that yet, though I would assume they would. They have done it, you know, so consistently before. And the same thing for like expansions or G rank or master rank, whatever you want to call it. They're obviously going to do more with Wilds after this initial launch, surely. And with the amount of free updates we've seen, both in Worlds, but obviously a lot in Rise as the more recent example, where we're getting new additions to the game, new missions, new monsters, variants and stuff, we'll obviously expect that too. We also still have a lot of questions about the weapons specifically. I've literally played the game for 90 minutes, right? I've watched a load of gameplay from the dev streams, but also other creators that have played and tried to discover stuff. And looking at the discussions on Reddit about the weapons, there's still discoveries being made about the changes to combos and what's available and what's possible. It still has that strong feeling of discovery and mystery about it. The type of stuff we're only going to be able to talk about and speculate about until there is a demo or the full release to really test and sink time in under freer conditions. I can't describe to you how fast those 90 minutes went for me. We got to spend like about 60 just sort of playing the game and working things out. And then when I did the recording, it was gone in an eye blink, those 30 minutes. It felt like I did not remotely have enough time to try and test all the things I wanted to. So yeah, really hoping for that demo announcement anytime. In general though, guys, I think it's very safe to say that Wilds is going to be a very special game. And it's easy to think that it's going to be comparable, or at least we have the same hope for it. As big as an impact that World was on the series, we want Wilds to be the same. Going from World to Rise, there was this stark contrast, like the mainline series to the portable. But by comparison, Wilds feels like it's for everyone. Whatever platform you're playing on, we should finally be getting the content at the same time, and hopefully able to play with each other how we want. So the potential for Wilds is palpable, and I'm only more hyped after the experience I've had at Gamescom and seeing everything that followed and everyone's reactions to it all. So yeah, that's just my more casual, general talk about the experience and the thoughts that I've had. But again, if you're wanting the real in-depth details on different topics, I've now made 3 videos about that kind of stuff, so check those out if you want. For now then, I've been Hollow, you've been you. Thank you for all the support on all the coverage that I've been doing. And until next time, yeah, thanks for watching.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.